You know, we have a growing population of need for the services that you provide, and especially in the East Tennessee area, and we do not have enough facilities like yours, and we would like for you to try to expand. And that was several years ago that they came and talked to our leadership, and our leadership took it before the board and decided that they would start expanding. And somewhere around, I think around December, maybe November of 2014, I think, ground was broken somewhere in there to start building onto some of the campus at our site. And that's what we're going to look at briefly before I give you a lesson, and hopefully I won't take up a lot of your time, but I think all of you will agree that at any amount of time that we discuss things that are related to God, we could go all night. I won't keep you here all night, but that is what's important. And so that I got this right. Oh, yep, there it is. Okay. The Children's Home is committed to serving abused, neglected, abandoned, wayward, or orphan children and youth, as well as their families, in a Christian manner. We utilize all different resources. We will provide for physical, social, emotional, spiritual, and educational needs for the youth that come through our program, and we do it in a safe and secure environment. 3 of our campuses have on-site schools. We have certified teachers, and we provide instruction right on campus. They don't have to go off campus for schooling. And we have had, I know, prior to coming over to the Knoxville campus and taking over as the director there, I was in West Tennessee as a residential counselor, me and my wife, and I was also the principal at the school there. And I know since 2011, that campus alone has graduated about 40 young men, I believe, which, considering that the average number of young men that are on their campus on a daily basis is 24, and the average stay is about 6 months, that's a significant number when you consider you're doing all ages. So we do have fully functioning staff on all 3 campuses. It just so happens that I think that we have the best facilities here right now in Knoxville. However, they will be soon building new buildings in Spring Hill and relocating to a new campus and bigger campus, because theirs has pretty much been around for quite a few years and is starting to get outdated. But 90% of the homes, this is one of the things that the state likes about Tennessee Children's Home and why they've asked us to expand. 90% of the homes that we serve are restored to an intact condition. Meaning, when a young man comes to us and we go through our program that we have, it's a behavior modification program, we go through the program with them and they complete our program, 90% of them go home and never return back into custody. They go back home and live successful lives. There is 10% that don't, but we have a higher rate than any facility, any agency in the state. The average for the state on being restored is about, I think it's about 70%. Don't quote me on that because it's always changing, but I think it's about 70%. So we're up to 90%, so we're quite a difference above that. So once again, like I said, the state's asked us if we could increase our occupancy. So we broke ground. This is one of our residential homes. And this is actually the current home that the group we've got right now are living in, and I'll explain why when we've got 3 homes, why we're only using 1 right now. But as you can see, it was a muddy mess for a period of time. We had our board meeting there not this past July, but last July. It was my first year there, and this was about the condition everywhere. And it was a muddy mess. And so we just had a board meeting there this past weekend, and all of our board members were excited to see a driveway, excited to see sidewalks and grass, and not having mud to walk in everywhere, so they were excited about that. This is our multi-purpose building. It does our school as well as our administrative building. On the far end, The far end down here is the gym, and then the offices on the front side, and then on the back side we have our classrooms. This is, once again, what it looked like last year. Now, this is the actual finished product from the outside. There is 2 homes that are across the street. One's right across the street from it is our other second newest home, and both of them are identical. Excuse me, I get dry mouth sometimes when I'm talking, and I apologize for drinking, but the homes hold a unique setup. On one side, it's a full house where it's got 8 bedrooms, 8 individual bathrooms in those bedrooms for the 8 guys that go into that house. They also have a living room, they have a kitchen and dining room, and they have a laundry room, and we also have a office inside of that side that can double as a storm shelter in the event of a storm. And I'm being told that it can withhold 300-mile-an-hour winds. I really, on one hand, would like to see that, but on the other hand, I don't want to see that. I've been through hurricanes, so I don't want to see the tornadoes neither. But on the opposite side of it, on this side right here is from this door down this way, and then behind it back here is another wing that goes. But those are the resident side, and that's the side that they live on. The side, their door right there where I'm pointing at to that side is a 3-bedroom apartment that our residential counselors or house parents live in. They have their own living quarters, their own living room, their own kitchen, their own bedrooms and everything that live in that area. The house parents, the residential counselors work with the boys, or with them from 6 in the morning till 10 at night. 10 at night, we have staff that comes in at night at 10 o'clock and stays awake and is on the boys' side in case they have any emergencies. They're there to attend to them, and it gives the house parents opportunity to go and get some rest as well. This is a decent picture of our finished product on our school. It is the front side of the building, and I wish I'd have got a better picture to put in on this, but I think it's still a unique picture. I like looking at it, and I've got it where I can see it fairly regular on a daily basis on my computer. The school itself is named Duncan Academy. Mr. Duncan and his wife, some of you may, if you've been around the area for years, some of you may have known Mr. Duncan and his wife. He was an elder at Carnes Church of Christ years ago, and he and his wife owned a lot of this land, and they made it possible for not only Tennessee Children's Home to have a portion of that land to utilize their services, but also the School of Preaching has got apartments right there across from us. And I can't ever remember what the name of the camp is. It's Tennessee Christian Camp or something like that. Maybe some of you younger ones know that. It's right there on top of the hill as well. And all that land was provided by the Duncans. And so when it came time to name the school, I kind of wanted to do something in honor of the Duncans because they're the ones that helped provide it. But what was even more unique was when I was living in Illinois, one of the couples that we got to be good friends with was Mike and Jane Kirk. And Jane was Harold and Della's daughter. And so I called her and I said, hey, we're opening a new building. We'd like for you guys to be here. By the way, we're going to name the school after your family. And she got there and came to the open house. And little did I know, both her mom and her dad were educators. So it was unique to name a school after the Duncans. This is the living room on the boys' side. As you can see, they've got some, right behind us here is the TV. The wall where you can't see is a wall where the TV's at for them. And then in the back is a little game station and a dining room area that they have for eating. This is the opposite shot of that. And then down one of the hallways where there's 4 rooms. There's 4 rooms on each hallway. This is a shot coming from one of the side doors looking into that hallway. And you got 4 rooms. There's 2 mechanical rooms as well, but 4 rooms that are the boys' rooms. And then the kitchen and dining room area. And this is what the boys' room looks like. before a young man gets there, and then they typically have stuff everywhere, don't we? No, they do a fine job of keeping their rooms clean. In fact, that's one of their requirements, but they actually really do a good job of keeping their rooms clean, especially the young men I've got with me tonight. This is a shot in their bathrooms. And then this is our pantry that we have. We have a pantry that's also in that school building and multipurpose building. And this is where we get our donations. So the donations that you guys have collected and stuff, it will go into here. And this is what helps us cut a lot of our costs so we don't have to go out and purchase stuff, and helps us be able to survive and function and continue to operate on a daily basis. What happens is weekly our house parents or residential counselors will come over and shop and get groceries from here. Whatever we don't have, which is usually the perishable items, we go to the local store and pick up stuff and have for the week. This is a portion of the shot of our gym, which I think is one of the coolest gyms out of all three gyms, or is the coolest gym out of all three gyms that we have in our agency. West Tennessee's was about a third smaller than this, had no heat or air conditioning, and it was tough during the summers and the winters. And from what I understand is Spring Hills, even though theirs is a pretty nice gym, I'm being told that I don't think they have heat or air. I sent one of my coworkers in West Tennessee when I worked with him there text when I first arrived here, when I was sitting in the gym, and I had a picture of the gym and took a shot at a wide gym, and I said, it's really cold in this gym. And I think it was about 95 degrees in Henderson where he was at sitting in his gym. So he didn't like that too much. Next time I seen him, he let me know about it. What you see here is not a group of our guys. There is some of our guys in here, but this is also a group of teenagers from area churches around the entire area here in the east that were doing a servant camp back in the summer. They came out and spent about a week with us, going through and doing a lot of cleaning, and it just helped our campus tremendously. And they redid a deck on our old house, and that was wonderful to have them a part of it. This is the area that our guys love the most. It is a classroom. It is not a traditional classroom where you see desks. I believe in using tables to give them a little more space. They also operate with computers, so it's a little safer to have the computers on the desk. But this is what a typical classroom looks like on a regular basis. And that would do our slide portion of it. We are right now in search of more staff to get fully functioning. We can carry up to 16 young men on our campus if we're fully functioning with our staff. In order to do that, we have to have. I'm in need of a special education teacher. It is a requirement to run our school to have a special education teacher. It just so happens that I'm also a certified special education teacher. But as a director, I don't want to have to carry and wear all these different hats. But right now, for us functioning, my certification is letting me do that. So if you know anyone that's interested in looking, send them our way. We're also going to be looking for people to work wake night staff, which is from 10 at night till 6 in the morning. And some of those positions are part-time and some are full-time. And we've also are always looking for residential counselors. I've got a young couple that I've just hired on that are moving in. They should be leaving their location in about 2 or 3 days and driving here. And it'll take about a good few weeks for them to get here and get trained. That'll allow us to expand a little bit more. But then once we get enough staff that we can go to 16, then we can actually run our campus in the way we needed to and to be able to help the state even more. We service kids, young men from I've had them all the way over to Nashville, down to Chattanooga, all the way up to the northeast corner of the state. And we will take private placements as well, but the vast majority of our young men come to us through the Department of Children's Services. And like I said, our goal is to work with them We're a performance-based facility, so we want to try to get them in, work with them, get them ready to return to their homes. We also do counseling with the families as well, and we try to do everything that we can to get them back to where they came from with a renewed idea. And we don't force religion on them, but we also provide that as a component in our daily lives. They go to church 3 times a week. We go to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. It is part of our program, and we don't make it an option. The state is aware of that, and the state is okay with that. And like I said, I tell every one of them, and they can tell you that I tell them that I can't force them to listen to a lesson, but I can force them to be respectful when they are anywhere and hold them accountable for it. And I am very proud of our young men when we go to services. They do a very good job, and they are very respectful in that light, and I'm very proud of them. From time to time, we have some that come in, and it's tough when you see them leave because there are some kids that just kind of touch you, and you know their conditions and where they're from and the things that are going on. So it's tough in some of those situations. And of course, we always hate to see any kid leave to some degree, but we're excited to see them leave because we want them to reunite with their families. And so I'm very proud of our facility. We have begun to turn a corner with some newer staff coming in and getting it rolling. And we're glad that you guys were part of helping us in a food drive. Every year we also put on a golf tournament right up the road up here. It's been at Avalon, I think that's the name of it, for several years. And I believe we might have it there again. I'm not 100% sure. It is sponsored by John Chavis, if any of you know that name. He was is a defensive coordinator for Texas A&M. He used to be a defense coordinator for University of Tennessee. And when he is in town, he comes to Carnes as Carnes Church of Christ and is there where his son is a member as well. But I won't take up any more of your time with the children's home. I do want to provide you with a lesson, and I'll try to make this as brief as I can and share with you some thoughts on a lesson. And I once again appreciate you letting me come tonight and be able to speak. Tonight, the lesson is one that I've done a couple of times, and it's one that I, in looking at it, I correlated a little bit with what I do, what my spouse and I do as mission work with the Tennessee Children's Home, in the light of us being able to get out and doing something for the good of the gospel and being able to help spread God's word. And so the lesson comes to us tonight from Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. If you're familiar with that, you'll know that is the statement on being the salt of the earth. And I'll read it here with you if you bear with me. Let me get to the right page. Well, I was on the right page, and while I turn the page. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing, but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. So let's think about that. You're the salt of the earth. Let's examine it a little bit and let's look at it in a sense, how it reveals something about the world. We could begin by looking at the fact that each of us that are Christians are the salt of the earth, and what is expected. And I think most of us that are Christians, or all of us that are Christians, should kind of understand that and what is expected of us. But sometimes we often forget that. But likewise, if we've got some that aren't Christians or are trying to understand more, let's take a look at why it's important that Jesus made that statement. And for that, we got to first understand the implications about the world and what we knew, or what Jesus knew at the time. He clearly implies that the world is full of decay. And I don't think there's a person in here that would disagree with me that our world is in decay. We have got it all around us, the things that are going on. And it is scary to think what the years to come will be like if we continue to head down this path. Our world's full of things that lead to illness and death. The world has something called sin, which is loose on a rampage, and we see that every day, and it's growing, and it's getting bigger. People are more emboldened by what they can do and what they say. The tendency of the world is to turn toward evil and bad. That's the cool thing to do. You know, I can turn to the bad side and do things, and it's really cool, and that's a great thing to do, and that's what people think and see on a basis that they think it's the right way to go. It only leads to a path of death. But let's just look at a few verses that gives us a biblical concept of the world. In Psalms 14, verses 1 through 3, it says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none who does good. The Lord looks down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there are any who understand, who seek God, and they have all turned aside. They have together become corrupt. There is none who does good, no, not one." Jeremiah 17:9, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" Genesis 6, verses 5 and 6. "Then the Lord saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on earth, and he was grieved in his heart." Now, if this statement was being made back in Genesis, and I'm sure that there was a lot of things that were going on then, but you have to wonder what God thinks right now and where we're at today. If you understand the implication about the world in Jesus' statement, then his intention for us as salt becomes clear. You see, salt works because it's different fundamentally from that to which it's put on. Just as the Beatitudes taught us that we're to be different from the world, only when we are different can we really affect that, can we have the effect that Jesus had in mind. And if you think about that from the standpoint of what salt can do, and we're going to talk about that for just a second, we need to focus on what it really means to be the salt of the earth. The salt of the earth reveals something about God's people. And to understand that, we want to understand some things about salt in itself. Like I said, salt's characteristics, they're easily identifiable. If you rub salt in meat, it prevents meat from decaying, and it keeps it good to eat. Salt removes the cause of decay, and it keeps it good to eat. Jesus sent all who serve him. Jesus sent all who would serve him into the world to preserve the world. Mark 16:16 said, "And he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." He didn't say one or two. He didn't say the rich. He didn't say the best dressed. He said to all. He didn't say, would you think about going? He said, go. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned. It is a scary thought every day thinking about the things that are going on around you. especially if you don't have the idea in your mind and have the thought process and the devotion to God to know that if he were to walk in and take us today, would you be one that would be going? If you're not sure of that, then I suggest that you make things right with God. Salt purifies. In times of old, salt and salt water was used to cleanse wounds. I remember growing up, and I'm not relatively old, but I remember growing up and occasionally when I was younger, wounds and things like this would happen, especially my grandmother would do that to us. Today, and even back when I was growing up, people would use salt as part of an oral hygiene. They'd gargle salt. About a month ago, I think one of my daughters had a sore throat, and that was one of the things my wife told her to do. Put some salt water in a cup, gargle it, and I think you had to heat it up too, but the process was still there. The salt purifies it. It makes it better. Think about that. The world needs salt because it has been corrupted by sin. Christians are the salt. Salt burns when poured into an open wound. Sometimes pain is required to save. If you're going out and you're teaching people about the gospel, it's going to burn. It's going to burn them some. You might hurt some feelings, but if you save one person, then it's worth it. Salt is a seasoning agent. Now, I remember growing up, too, and I still do today. Of course, my spouse doesn't use salt as much as my mother did, but I remember growing up that we never had bland food. I'm not saying my wife has bland food, so y'all don't go tell her I said that, okay? My mother would season food just right, so I never touched a salt or pepper shaker. So as I grew older and got married and my wife started cooking, I had to learn how to occasionally slide the salt and shake over. But there's sometimes you get things that are over-salted. And I think sometimes we can be too pressing on someone with the gospel and lose them and not keep them focused on what God's word is because we're trying to press too hard. I think that's over-salting. But if done just right and salted, the flavor that it comes in contact with the food, once the salt comes in contact with the food, makes the flavor great. Salt by itself doesn't taste good. I don't know if any of you ever tried it, but it doesn't taste good. And for some reason, I think growing up, sometimes we want to tempt it and try it and see what it tastes like. But likewise, the world is a better place because of the Christian influence. And everyone who becomes in contact with a Christian, keep in mind, salt, should be better by exposure to his influence. So everybody that comes in contact with you as a Christian, as the salt, by your influence, should be touched and should see something. Christians give the flavor of a loving God, not their own individual flavor. There's not a single Christian that can ensure another person gets into heaven. That's solely up to that person. We can help them by giving them guidance, but we're not going to be able to get them there. They're going to have to do it. But if we can help by giving them God's word, not what we think the Bible tells us, not what someone else tells us. You guys are going through a search for a new preacher, and I think that's a neat time. I've done it before when I was a deacon in a church in Illinois, and it is a neat time because you do see a lot of different people, but somehow God manages to put the right person before you, and even though you'll have a preacher soon, I would assume, his lessons is going to be lessons that will be food for you, but it's not going to be that preacher that's going to get you to heaven. It's going to be your actions. So you too need to become the salt. Salt makes people thirsty. Common practice in bars is to have salty snacks. I say it is. I know years and years ago when I was not faithful, I can tell you I knew then, so I don't know today if that's a practice, but they would have salty snacks on the counter so people would drink more. You go to a movie. I just went the other night. Popcorn is typically very salty. I love it to death, but it's very salty. But it makes you want to drink more, which means you're going to buy more from it. So salt makes people thirsty. A common practice, like I said, was to add more salt to stuff, and it caused people to want to drink more. So, observing a Christian's life should make the world thirsty for what the Christian has. If we are acting the way God wants us to be, if we are presenting ourselves in a Christian manner, we should be an example to others that should sometimes make them step back and think, man, they've really got it going on. Something about them that I want to be a part of. I want to know what it is that they have. Hearing Christians talk about the gospel should make people want more. Jesus says, salt that has no flavor has no value. If the salt will not flavor food, why put it on the food? It has no value. Jesus said we are the salt of the world, not the salt of the church building. That's also important to remember. Too many people believe this is the only environment that you need to act like a Christian in. This is the only place that it really matters about being a Christian. You know what happens when you keep a salt in the salt shaker and never do anything with it? Especially if it's exposed to any water, it hardens, but if you keep it in there, it can still form together and still harden. If you never use it, it's not going to be like it was when it first went into that bottle. So if Christians, if we never leave these doors and take the message to the world, we are hardened salt. And we are not doing what we're supposed to be doing. You can leave salt in a shaker for 50 years, as I said, and it won't accomplish anything. Likewise, Christians sitting on the pews for 50 years won't accomplish anything either. And sometimes people don't want to hear that. But when we sit and we don't do anything outside of our own comfort, we're not going to accomplish anything. We can make the application of this image of salt to the people to whom Jesus spoke to, and it becomes clear what Jesus wanted us to do. We are to function as a purifier in the world. We're to function as a preservative in the world. We're to function as a purifier in the world. And we are to be a seasoning agent to the world. Consider in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 through 4, what it says, "Therefore be imitators of God as dear children, and walk in love as Christ also loved us and given himself for us, an offering and sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling aroma. But fornication and all uncleanliness and covetousness, let it not even be named among you, as is fitting for saints, neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor coarse jesting, which are not fitting, but rather giving of thanks." In John 17, verses 15 through 18, it says, "I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. If salt loses its saltness, what happens? What happens when salt is no longer different from that at which it is applied? What happens when salt no longer functions as salt? Basically, what happens when we as Christians no longer do what we're supposed to be doing as Christians? We know something has happened to salt if saltness is lost. Basically, about the only way this can happen is for the salt to become mixed with another element. When we allow sin to creep in and take over, we lose our salt. We lose the function of it. This happens when people who are to be different from the world become just like the world. We think we've got to be just like the world and do everything that the world teaches us. Jesus is teaching us that so-called Christians who are not salt are so worthless they aren't even fit to be thrown on manure. And Jesus can tell what we are by the effect we have on those around us. What we do demonstrates what we are. And what we are will determine if Jesus keeps us or casts us out. In conclusion, as I said, the way I look at this lesson that I've used and how it represents part of what we do at the children's home is the fact that day in and day out, all of my staff have the opportunity to be the salt that seasons these young men that come through, to provide them with some spiritual guidance, even if it's just through the examples that they see. But in all of our daily lives, we are called to change the world in which we live. With everything going on in the world today, all the different slogans that you hear by the politicians, all the different comments that you hear by the entertainers or the people in the media and everything that's going on, everybody has something that they say needs to be done. What really needs to happen is we need to get away from the world and get to God and focus on God. We do it by practicing the life of God in the midst of a sinful world. Not being shameful to stand up and let people know that we are Christians. Here is where we need to begin to make some real examinations of ourselves. Is there a clear distinction between your life and that of the people who you live around? Do I allow myself to fall prey to the office jokes? To ignore the language? Are you different to the condition of the world and to your responsibility to affect your part of the world for good? Are you making a better place? Are you making the world a better place? Are souls being saved because of coming in contact with you and hearing God's word? If you feel like that tonight that you have not become the salt of the earth like God wants us to be, I know that the opportunity is there. I see that you have a baptistry back here. And the steps that you take are very simple. But it doesn't stop with just making the admission. It doesn't stop with just the act of confessing. It doesn't stop with just the baptizing. It continues, and a lot of times I think we as Christians forget that. When we go through the process with a new Christian, we forget the continuation part with them and help them through their growing process. So if you are here tonight and you are not a child of God and you know that it is time for you to become a child of God, and there's going to be a time for you here in just a moment. if you are here tonight and you are a child of God and you feel like your salt's starting to lose its saltness, and I know that brothers here and sisters here will be praying for you, then now will be the time as we sing this song that you make that known.
On behalf of the Lawnville Road Church of Christ, I want to thank you for joining us today for our worship. If you ever have an opportunity, we invite you to join us at our physical location at 1301 Lawnville Road in Kingston, Tennessee. We hope you will come experience the simplicity of New Testament Christianity, learn about God, and become a part of His family. If you have questions, if you would like to know more about the Bible, or if you would like a home Bible study, feel free to contact us by calling 865-717-0444. Or, for more information, visit our website, www.lawnvilleroadcoc.org. Again, we thank you, and we hope you have a blessed day.